Go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire. Ye have heaped treasure together for the last days. Behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud, crieth. And the cries of them which have reaped are entered into the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth. Ye have lived in pleasure on the earth, and been wanton. Ye have nourished your hearts as in a day of slaughter. Ye have condemned and killed the just, and he doth not resist you. Be patient therefore, brethren, unto the coming of the Lord. Behold, the husbandman waiteth for the precious fruit of the earth, and hath long patience for it, until he receive the early and latter rain. Be ye also patient, establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord draweth nigh. Grudge not one against another, brethren, lest ye be condemned. Behold, the judge standeth before the door. Take, my brethren, the prophets, who have spoken in the name of the Lord, for an example of suffering, affliction, and of patience. Behold, we count them happy which endure. Ye have heard of the patience of Job, and have seen the end of the Lord, that the Lord is very pitiful and of tender mercy. But above all things, my brethren, swear not, neither by heaven, neither by the earth, neither by any other oath. But let your yea be yea, and your nay, nay, lest ye fall into condemnation. Is any among you afflicted? Let him pray. Is any merry? Let him sing psalms. Is any sick among you? Let him call for the elders of the church, and let them pray over him, anointing him with oil in the name of the Lord. And the prayer of faith shall save the sick, and the Lord shall raise him up. And if he have committed sins, they shall be forgiven him. Confess your faults one to another, and pray one for another, that ye may be healed. The effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. Elijah was a man subject to like passions as we are, and he prayed earnestly that it might not rain, and it rained not on the earth by the space of 3 years and 6 months. And he prayed again, and the heaven gave rain, and the earth brought forth her fruit. Brethren, if any of you do err from the truth, and one convert him, let him know that he which converteth the sinner from the error of his way shall save a soul from death, and shall hide a multitude of sins.
Greetings and welcome everybody to the Divine Program of the World's History by Albert Close. Another reading we're doing today on this marvelous Sunday, June 23rd, 2019. And I am with Michael and Jörg. So I would like to invite them both to the mic. And Michael, can I hand it over to you yet, or are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready to hand it over to Jörg.
All right, great.
Chicken.
No, it's all right.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm sweating a little bit here in my little bedroom because we have about 80 degrees in my room here today. And you know, I'm not blessed with an air conditioning, so I just have to sweat it out. Meanwhile, I drink a hot cup of coffee that gets a little bit me wake up again because it's in the afternoon, and that's always when I fall a little bit asleep. So just sipping that wonderful coffee. And then, well, without any further ado, let's go back to the book, The Divine Program of the World's History, from Albert Close, written during the First World War, or the Great War as it was called, published somewhere around the year 1916. We're on page 12 times 12, means 144, in the book and 116 in the PDF, and we are going to deal in this broadcast, which should be about the 45th broadcast of this reading, lunar calendar and solar years. Now, who has ever reckoned the lunar calendar? I tell you for my part, most of the time in the night I don't even see the moon, so I have no idea how people can make times out of the moon. I have no idea. And the interesting stuff is that last night, during our Bible study with Tom Fress and Bret Norman, we spoke about the Sabbath. And we spoke about people who say, "Oh yeah, but the Sabbath is a lunar Sabbath. It's a lunar Sabbath you should keep." I don't mention names. If the one ever watches this video who I'm speaking of, he knows who he is. That's not the point. But, Tom made the point, when you have 30 days in a month, and that 12 times, because biblically you have 360 days in a year, that is not divisible by 7. Yeah? So, how can you have a quote-unquote lunar Sabbath when the Sabbath actually should be every 7th day? Because in 6 days God made the world and everything that is in it, and he rested on the 7th day and hallowed and sanctified the 7th day. It's every 7th day that we should set apart for worship and for obedience, special obedience to our God. We should obey him always. Thank you very much for this stupid report. We should thank and remember him always for everything that we do. But the Sabbath day is a special day to remember, as he said in Exodus chapter 20, remember the Sabbath day to how did he say that? Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. To keep it holy.
Yep. And Jörg, I'll just quick remind you, it's a day of rest. I said worship during our study once, and Tom corrected me, and I believe he was correct in saying rest.
It's a day of rest in the Lord.
Yes.
That's why so many people use the excuse, yeah, but Jesus is our rest. We don't need to have the Sabbath anymore. I don't want to even start a discussion on the Sabbath now. That is not the idea. I just want to tell you, when we speak about these lunar years and solar years and calendar years, which Albert Close has been talking about all through the book, you remember when he gave us the dates of the 1260 days or 1260 years, 1203 score. He used lunar years, he used solar years, and he used calendar years. All different ways of counting, all matching different kinds of dates to the fulfillment of the prophecy. So I just say from my standpoint, and that is my personal standpoint, I cannot read anything out of the moon because most of the time of the month I don't even see him because it's clouded over here where I live. I don't even see the sky. Friends of mine were a few years back in Iceland, Iceland, that country in the north, and they did a few days of vacation there and they photographed the sky. I was astonished when I saw what the sky was there. You could see the whole Milky Way. Incredible. I had no idea because over here we have so much light pollution. You see here and there a little star, and that's it.
Oh, yeah. I can only imagine in Europe how bad it is there.
I think when you live in a place where you can see that, especially Bret can understand me because you live a little bit outside, you will have a wonderful night sky to watch at, I think. But when you see that for the first time, all of a sudden you understand the wonder of creation, right?
Yeah. Well, you have to be a long way from city lights because the city lights, I mean, they don't call it light pollution for no reason, right?
Yeah,
it's really, really something. Oh, yeah. Cool.
And in Iceland, you don't have that light pollution, because it's a big country and very few people living in there. And Belgium is the difference. It's a very small country and very many people living in there, about 11 million.
Yeah.
And
that's right.
I think Belgium fits into Germany 38 times. So you can imagine how small it is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I've
just posted a picture from a very strange sky cloud setting, which I took 2 days ago, or 2 days ago.
Oh, yes. Yep, the rippling kind of clouds like that.
Yeah. I found that so strange that I took a pic of it.
Sure.
Yeah,
it's like
kind of hard-working.
Yep, it could be. It really could be.
Looks like you have waves on the water,
Right. It's really strange what's going on, and these are like, again, another controversial topic that most of the popular culture will, they'll want to place a tinfoil hat on you and start mocking you the moment you start talking about it. So we don't even need to talk about it. People can do their own research on their own and come to their own conclusions, because there's tons of videos on this stuff. You kind of get sick of it,
Yeah, people who talk about chemtrails speak about the chemtrails in the air, as you see them here on this picture, that cloud the air and by that don't give you a view to the sun.
Yeah, that's true.
They never talk about the chemtrails the Antichrist is putting in the minds of men to cloud your mind that you don't see the light of life, which is Jesus Christ. You know?
Mm-hmm.
How is that for a change to come to the book reading, huh?
Yeah, that's right.
So, let's go there. Page 144, Lunar Calendar and Solar Years. He shows that they have, with few exceptions, entirely overlooked the important fact which we have learned from the Book of Nature, i.e., that there are years of different lengths. Let me just put the cover of the book here as long as I'm on this page. The lunar year of 354 days, measured by the moon's 12 lunations. The calendar year of 360 days, measured by the conjoint movement of the sun and moon. Oh. Did you stumble upon the same word that I stumbled upon right now in this last sentence? This author is politically incorrect. He says measured by the conjoint movement of the sun and the moon, but that's not possible. The sun doesn't move. The sun is a fixed star and everything moves around the sun, right?
Yeah, that's right.
He's not politically correct.
That's right.
Oh,
hey.
I guess this video will be again blocked because of hate speech, because we speak of a geocentric system, Earth that is fixed, and the stars and the moon and the sun that evolve around the Earth. Everything is about the Earth and around about it, and not the other way around. Well, that's of course what the devil wants to tell you, that it's not that way. That you live in an insignificant solar system where you are of no importance because you're on a tiny little blue dot somewhere there.
Here we go.
Out there.
Pandora's box has been opened again.
Okay, I should stop. I should just continue reading.
Billions of years old, it's the cosmos.
This is a friendly advice. You should not upload this video on YouTube.
Probably not.
Yeah, caution.
So, and then the solar year of 365 days, measured by the sun, i.e., the seasons. Now, these interpreters have employed almost exclusively the solar scale in use of our own day, and have overlooked the bearing which the lunar and calendar scale may also have upon the subject. The question naturally arises: which scale did the inspiring spirit intend should be employed in interpreting those chronological prophecies? Nature measures years on all three scales, and men in different ages have adopted sometimes one and sometimes another. At the present time, speaking of the beginning of the 20th century, the Christian calendar is solar, 365 days, and the Mohammedan is lunar, 354 days. So I'd say, from a Christian standpoint, the truth is in the middle, and that's 360, right? That's what the Bible proclaims.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see the flag of the Muslims also represents a crescent moon.
A crescent moon, yeah. And why? Because it is a moon worshipping, it is a star worshipping, a sun worshipping religion. Yeah?
Oh, don't forget the pentagram.
Yeah.
Yuck.
Look like two flags like Turkey. They have the crescent moon and they have the stars. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, the reply as to the true scale to be employed is that, as there are several terminal dates in the stages which mark the rise and development of the papal power, so in like manner we may expect a corresponding series of terminal dates making the various stages in its downfall. No great power like the papal or Mohammedan power rises or falls in a single year. Now, that's what they always say, huh? Rome wasn't built in a day, right?
Yeah, that's right.
There are always a series of crises and great events both in the rise and in the fall of any great power. In the cases of the papal and Mohammedan powers, they are incipient, central, and final dates of commencement, from which, respectively, after a lapse of 1,203 years, there are corresponding incipient, central, and final dates marking the stages in their downfall. A series of commencing dates gives rise to a series of terminating dates. A careful examination of all these periods on the lunar, calendar, and solar scales indicates that the Spirit of God intended all three scales to be employed. Hence, chronological prophecy directs our attention not so much to one particular year, but rather to an era in which dates measured by the various scales from the various commencing dates in the rise of the great papal and Mohammedan powers are found to run out and lead again and again to events which prove to be stages in their downfall. Too many great stages in the rise and fall of these powers have been separated by periods of 1,203 years to be purely the result of chance or coincidence. It is providence. It is God's providence. But Jewish and Mohammedan chronology are strictly lunar, and chronological periods connected with Eastern events seem to be calculated on this scale, while those concerned with Western European or papal events seem to be measured by the solar scale, especially the final dates. If we were to take 3 watches, each losing respectively 1 second, 2 seconds, and 3 seconds per day, and start them simultaneously at 12 a.m. on January 1st, they would, in the course of a year, arrive at entirely different terminal points. The same principle in measuring chronological prophetic periods. If we employ lunar years of 355 days, a calendar year of 360 days, or calendar years of 360 days, we arrive in the course of centuries at entirely different terminal dates to those reached if we employ solar years of 365 days. Now, taking the year 533 AD, one of the great critical years in the rise of the papal power, as a starting point, it makes a difference of 38 years in the time when the 1,203 years should expire if we employ lunar years, or 355 days of 355 days, or solar years of 365 days. The lunar scale expires in the year 1755 AD, the period of the tremendous outbreak of infidelity in France, which indirectly led to the frightful atrocities of the Great French Revolution. 1755, this is the time of the starting of Voltaire. You know, he was the one who started the policy of reasoning in France that led to the French Revolution in the end of the 18th century. 1755, that's about the time Voltaire started teaching. Oh, it says so in the next it says so in the next paragraph. I didn't know that. Voltaire, 150 years ago, carried his atheistical teaching to Germany, where he was the guest of Frederick the Great for some years. Voltaire's atheism and rationalism gave Germany her rationalist professors, and these in time undermined the Bible and gave the world the modern German interpretations which have almost destroyed the Bible in Germany and neutralized its power in almost every other land. Speaking of the higher criticism, that is. Yeah? The solar scale expires in the year 1793 AD, the year of the Reign of Terror in the French Revolution, and the complete overthrow of the Roman Catholic Church in France, in the course of which 24,000 priests and monks were massacred, and 40,000 churches, chapels, and oratories were desecrated and destroyed, and the Roman Catholic religion was abolished in France. It is evident from other scriptures and from the marvelous way in which some of these periods have been fulfilled by history that the divine mind intended all these periods of time to be interpreted on the one given scale, a day for a year. We are led, therefore, to conclude that in these symbolic prophecies, where time is predicted in miniature and in mystery, in harmony with the miniature and mysterious nature of the symbols in the prophecy in which they are mentioned and by which the prophecy is conveyed, that a day is the symbol of a year, that a week stands for 7 years, a month for 30 years, 30 times 42 gives you 1,203 score, and a time for 360 years, 3.5 times 360, results again in 1,203 score. The 40 and 2 months, which are considering, no doubt means 1,203 score years, because the great terminal periods, marking epochs in the rise and the fall of the Pope's temporal power, have been separated by periods of 1,203 score years. Now let's have a look at the era between 1905 and 1923 AD. In AD 533, Justinian's decree, well, that gave us the Justinian law, 1,260 or 1,203 score solar years leads to the Reign of Terror in the French Revolution in 1793, when the Church of Rome was overthrown in France. AD 607, Focus decree, which gave completely spiritual power over all churches in the known world at that time, 1,203 score solar years leads to Austrian and Franco-Prussian wars and the fall of papal temporal power between 1866 and 1870. Brothers, before I continue, I have to tell you that I am so glad that I have found this one book speaking of this Catholic unit thing of the German unity, where it is written that these protecting French troops left the Vatican in 1866. Because that led up to the understanding which we have here all over the book. I mean, this wonderful author, Albert Close, he always repeats this period of speaking from 606 through 1866, 1870. You know, it always takes a few times to establish itself. So it's just wonderful. It is so wonderful, in my humble opinion at least, that we are blessed with reading this book to tell you a different story, but that which is out there in the mainstream that always speaks of 538, 1798, right? The author just spoke about 533 to 1793. Now he speaks of 607 or 606, 607 through 1866 through 1870. He is taking the blinds of our eyes that the Seventh-day Adventist Church has put on our eyes. We come to a completely different understanding, and we see all of a sudden that the Seventh-day Adventists are not the historicists as they claim to be. And that, by the way, is just a confirmation of what Nicholas Arthur said about the Seventh-day Adventist Church, when he said that they are neither true Protestants nor are they real historicists, because they twist the history. But it is not easy to disprove them. Only when you find books like this one from Albert Close and read it and study it and understand it, and then you will see how they twist the truth. And why is the Seventh-day Adventist Church twisting the truth? Because they were founded by Freemasons. who are controlled.
Sure, there you go.
Because
Yeah.
they are controlled by the Jesuits from the get-go, from the start.
Isn't
Yeah.
it interesting how these different batches, shall we call them, of Freemasons consider themselves ecumenical?
Hmm.
Yeah, they're ecumenical, all right. They're in all our churches now. They run the show.
Yeah, that's
Yep,
why you
I don't want to be a part of that show.
That's
No
why
thanks.
you should get out of every church, right? Out of every
Yep.
congregation.
Yep, that's right.
Join the true church. Church means community. Yeah? Ecclesia speaks of a community of believers. And Jesus Christ said, wherever two or three of you are gathered together in my name, in their midst I will be. That is true church. And with 2 or 3 people, you have such a small, quote-unquote, congregation that infiltration is made impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Because the
That's right.
Bible also says that everything should be established in the presence of 2 or 3 witnesses. So when you keep your ecclesia that small, there's no way it can be infiltrated, because there are always 2 or 3 witnesses. If all of a
That's
sudden
right.
one of the 3 should start speaking against the word of God, it is easily detected, and he could easily be thrown out if it was the case. But with 2 or 3 people coming together in the Spirit, that is not the case. But whoa, when you get bigger, when you invite a 4th one, or a 5th one, or a 6th one, or even more, you invite the abomination into your ecclesia, into your congregation. And history proves that over and over and over again. Huh? AD 663. Full development of the Latin or Roman Church, 1203 score calendar years extend to AD 1905, when the separation law was passed in France. This law separated the Roman Catholic Church from the state. Thousands of priests, monks, and nuns were expelled from France. 1260 solar years led to 1923 AD. What then? The era between 1905 and 1923 may witness some strange and terrible happenings to the Church of Rome. Oh, and to the German nation, I can tell you, with the hyperinflation we had. Killed many, many people after the First World War. My grandmother was a witness of that. If you wanted to buy a loaf of bread, you had to pay several billion marks for a loaf of bread. And when you went to the bakery in the morning and you had to pay, for example, 2 billion marks for a loaf of bread, and you returned in the evening, you wanted the same loaf of bread, the price has been doubled or tripled. That's why people at the end of the day got their salary. Because if they didn't go shopping that night, the next day they couldn't buy anything with it anymore. Yeah. The era between 1905 and 1923, encapsulates the Great War, encapsulates the founding of the Federal Reserve System, encapsulates
wow. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. It also speaks of the period of the commercialization of Germany with the founding of the quote-unquote Weimar Republic. The same stuff when America became a company in 1871 after the 14th Amendment of 1868. It speaks of the big depression in Germany with the hyperinflation, where millions of people were starving to death because they just couldn't afford to feed themselves anymore. And I probably have them somewhere, I don't know where right now, but I remember that I kept these little notes, like dollar notes, mark notes, paper money from the time, and I still have a few originals here. And It's just incredible. And that's what the time between 1905 and 1923 was. Yeah. 1923, by the way, for Germany also an important point was the year 1923 was the year that Hitler tried his putsch in Munich in the time, and then went to prison for a few years, where he allegedly wrote the book Mein Kampf, which was ghostwritten by Jesuit Father Stempfle, of course, but that's another story. Okay, so the era between 1905 and 1923 AD may witness some strange and terrible happenings to the Church of Rome. Europe and the world may soon learn how she has had to do in fomenting the Great War of 1914. The history of the rise, reign, decline, and fall of the papal temporal power. But as all are not familiar with the history of the rise, the reign, the decline, and the fall of the papacy's political power, it is necessary in order to prove that the papacy has fulfilled the predictions in the book of Revelation that a brief sketch of that history should now be given. The facts of history in connection with the rise, reign, decline, and fall of this great power are briefly these. For the first 3 centuries after Christ, pagan Rome persecuted and sought to exterminate those who professed the Christian religion. In the beginning of the 4th century, the Emperor Constantine, who was converted about this time, who was quote-unquote converted because he never was really converted, he was a pagan until his death, established Christianity instead of paganism as the state religion of the Roman world. This gave the bishops of Rome considerable prestige, and before long they began to claim supremacy over other bishops, sometimes on one ground, sometimes on another, but chiefly from the importance of the See of Rome. If you want to learn more about this fact and the rise of the bishops of Rome, you have to read the wonderful book from James Atkin Wiley on the papacy, that is 450 pages. Bret, you got the original book there, right? You got the original title, I think?
I'm sorry, the papacy?
Yeah, this is the German book I have here. Let me just go there.
Yeah.
I have the title.
See.
I have the title.
I have
here
it somewhere.
beginning.
I have to dig for it, but yeah.
I got it here. The papacy, its history, dogmas, genius, and prospects being the Evangelical Alliance First Prize on Popery by James Atkin Wiley. That book you have to get. This has 453 pages. This is the German edition. I'm on page, 288 for the moment and preparing the book reading. And I'm doing another read tonight where we start on page 59, just in the 3rd chapter. But this book you have to get, and you can get it freely on the internet. There's a download link here where you can get it from the internet for free in English and in German. And it's called The Papacy, Its History, Dogmas, Genius, and Prospects, being the Evangelical Alliance First Prize on Popery by James Atkin Wiley. The German version is published in 1853, so I think the English version must be about the same time. So that's in the midst of the 19th century. It is a wonderful work, and it goes extensively over the rise of the bishops of Rome. It goes extensively over all the points the author makes here. The rise, the reign, and the decline of the papal temporal power. Because in the time James Atkin Wiley wrote this book, the fall was not yet set in, because that came 1870, and the book was published somewhere 1850, 20 years before that. Anyway, if you want to get deeper into that history, I can only advise you to read that book. So it says...
I find it a little bit sad that he's speaking of established Christianity instead of established Roman Catholicism. So you see, he's pointing out that Constantine has established Christianity instead of paganism.
It says that the Roman Empire sought to exterminate those who professed the Christian religion. We are speaking about the true Christians. In the beginning of the 4th century, the Emperor Constantine, who was converted about this time, which is not true, he was not converted, established Christianity instead of paganism as the state religion of the Roman world. That's true, he did. He did establish Christianity instead of paganism, but the problem is that was not Christianity after it was introduced, because then with missionary adaptation, that Christianity became apostate.
Yeah, that's my point. Because
yeah, but in the first place, sorry to interrupt you here, Michael. In the first place, he established Christianity as the state religion. Whether you like it or not, that's what he did. But that Christianity, as it was the true Christianity, never took place. It was directly via missionary adaptation paganized. That's absolutely true what you say. But he ordered it to be Christianity. That's why everybody today takes Roman Catholicism for Christianity. They preserved this lie all through the centuries. I mean, ask the average John Doe on the streets, is Roman Catholicism Christianity? And 90% will tell you, yeah, sure it is.
99.
Or 99. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
And it is not, and we know that. But Emperor Constantine stopped the persecution of the true Christians after the persecution of the 10 years, this 10 days of tribulation that Jesus Christ spoke of in the book of Revelation that took place between 303 and 313. Then he fomented the edict in 313, the Edict of Constantine, which gave peace to the Christians at that moment. And it took a few more years until he established the Christian belief system as the state religion of Rome. But of course, with establishing Christianity as a state religion, there already it went wrong, and it became paganized Christianity. But he really used Christianity, the real Christianity. That was his setup. But of course, real Christianity can never be established as a state religion, because those things are contradictive, right?
Right.
Because you have a combination of state and church. And in real biblical Christianity, you have a separation of state and church. That's why in the old times, in the Old Testament, you had the Levites and you had the kings on the other hand, right? It was a separation. Huh? The Levites were even their own people, right? And with merging Christianity as the state religion of pagan Rome, of course, there came the, what's it called? Not abomination, that's not the word that I'm looking for. The falling away. That is the big falling away that Paul warned on. So at that moment, every true Christian, of course, was called to come out of that church, because otherwise you were caught in Roman Catholicism that was building itself out of paganism, you know. But Roman Catholicism has to come from somewhere. You had the pagan Roman Empire on the one hand, you had Christianity on the other, and by merging these two, you have the foundation of Roman Catholicism. So it was not Roman Catholicism that took over Christianity. It is Roman Catholicism that came out of the merger of church and state, and the result was the universal or the Catholic Church as we know it today. At least that's my understanding of it, if you put it in correct words. You can always correct me if I'm not correct in there, but I think that is the correct way to see it. And the real Christianity at that time went underground and was still persecuted, and still is persecuted up to today, right? All through the Dark Ages, it were the Albigenses, it were the Waldenses, it were the Huguenots. There were all these biblical Christians that opposed Rome all through the centuries, and that is what the few Protestants today in the world still do, protesting the papacy and working against the papacy. But that real Church of Jesus Christ went underground, and that what was embraced by the Roman Empire as Christianity was then paganized Christianity, and there a development took place. And from this merging of paganism and Christianity, the result is Roman Catholicism. Can we agree on that?
Yeah, I got a slightly different opinion about it, but it's very hard to pronounce in English, so I like to...
well, try it. I will help you to translate if that's the case. I really, we can talk about this.
Yeah, my point is that in my understanding, I think that Emperor Constantine received an order to wage war against another one with the help of the cross. He has received the sign of the cross.
At the Milvian Bridge, he had the vision of the cross, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're referring to. That's right. That, of course, was a pagan symbolism that was given to him. Yeah. Because the God of the Bible doesn't play with crosses and doesn't give emperors visions of crosses in the sky. Okay?
Point taken. Yeah.
Absolutely correct. He was betrayed by the devil into that, thinking that he would establish real Christianity. But when you follow the history of Constantine, and I think we did so, I don't know if it was in this book or in another book reading, where we went extensively into Constantine and his life, and even his mother, and her search for the true cross in Jerusalem and all that stuff. You know that Emperor Constantine, until his deathbed, never converted to real biblical apostolic Christianity. Never ever. He stayed a pagan, he stayed a sun worshipper all his life. That's why he was the first emperor of the pagan Christianity, of what is today called Roman Catholicism. And it started, as you correctly said, Michael, there's nothing to say against it, at the Milvian Bridge, when he was fighting this war against this other general, and he had this sign in the sky with the cross, in hoc signo vinces, in this sign conquer, and he proclaimed himself to be a warrior for Christ. But as a biblical Christian, you already know that that can never be a sign from the God of the Bible, because the God of the Bible doesn't use the sword to kill other people. Not in the New Testament anymore.
Yeah, not after Jesus Christ had spoken out the Sermon on the Mount and his other commandments. You see, that's a point. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was not Christianity at that. It was not Catholicism at that time. That's the only point that I try to make clear. You had real biblical apostolic Christianity on the one hand, that already, by the way, was infiltrated by quote-unquote church fathers as Augustine and Origen and all these guys. They came out of quote-unquote Christianity. They didn't come out of paganism. They came out of Christianity. But that Christianity already was apostate. That is why Paul warned and said, the mystery of iniquity doth already work. And he said that in the middle of the 1st century. And that mystery of iniquity developed more and more and more, and that's why that quote-unquote Christianity actually loved to be embraced by the pagan empire at that time, because it got all the power on a silver platter. And that led to the rise of the bishops, and the Bishop of Rome especially, until 606, when Focus gave the complete spiritual power of the Eastern and Western churches to the Bishop of Rome. And by that, the first Pope was made. Innocent III, if I'm not mistaken, was his name. And he is considered the first Pope. He was set in power by Emperor Focus, who was the killer of his predecessor, Emperor Maurice, and his whole family. Okay? So, is that something more that you can live with an explanation, Michael, or do you have some other points to make? Because definitely. I really like... I otherwise like to discuss this with you and help you with your expressions, because I know that you have it sometimes difficult to express your correct words in English. I will help you with everything, okay?
Okay, no, it's okay. It's okay now.
Good.
I'm very glad that you have pointed that out.
Yeah, okay.
Clear.
So, let's go back to the book. In the beginning of the 4th century, the Emperor Constantine, who was quote-unquote converted about this time, established Christianity instead of paganism as the state religion of the Roman world. This gave the bishops of Rome considerable prestige, and before long they began to claim supremacy over other bishops, sometimes on the ground, sometimes on another, but chiefly from the importance of the See of Rome. And when you want to learn more about this, I advise you to read this book from James Atkin Wiley, or a shorter book, and read Babylon, Mystery Religion from Ralph Woodrow. He also deals extensively about this point. But their claims received little sanction until AD 533, when the Eastern Roman Emperor Justinian issued a decree in which he constituted the Bishop of Rome, quote, head of all the holy churches and of all the holy priests of God, unquote. But 74 years later, that is, in the year 607 AD, the Eastern Roman Emperor Phocas confirmed this by issuing, Boniface III, it is not Innocence, confirmed this by issuing another decree conceding to Boniface III the headship of all the churches of Christendom. And this, Michael, is your word. Here you should say, no, this is not Christendom, this is Roman Catholicism. And then you're absolutely correct. A stone column, known as the Column of Phocas, is still standing in the Forum in Rome. This column was erected at the time to commemorate this important concession. It was unearthed in the year 1813.
Yeah, and what does the Bible tell us about columns?
They are just symbols of sun worship.
Yeah.
Quote-unquote obelisks. Yeah?
Yeah, right.
That's what they say. This supreme episcopal jurisdiction gave the Bishop of Rome a position of tremendous influence amongst the young Gothic nations, into which the fragments of the fallen Western Empire gradually developed, and afterwards led through his interfering in their secular affairs to his exercising a sort of mixed temporal and spiritual authority. Things continued in this way amid ever-increasing pretensions to authority in matters secular as well as ecclesiastical until AD 1073, when Pope Gregory VII, Hildebrand, brought the papal political pretensions to a climax by claiming for himself in the name of God, quote, absolute and unlimited dominion over all the states of Christendom as successor of St. Peter and vicar of Christ upon earth. 4 years later, I think in 1077, we have had the incident of the German King Henry IV being forced to the walk to Canossa to ask the Pope for forgiveness because of rebelling against him. And somewhere between 606 or 607, what we just read here, and 1073, we have had the French Emperor Pepin, who fell into the Gothic nations in the name of Christ, and that is why he was considered the first Roman emperor. In a sense, not Roman, but because he gave his allegiance to the Bishop of Rome in the time, and he was the first of the quote-unquote pagans who accepted the power of the Pope, and that is why France is the second Rome. That is why Paris, for example, is called the second Rome too. Yeah? That is Emperor Pepin, but we are not going into that discussion right now, right here, maybe later on in the book. The papal noonday and the world's midnight. Yeah, when the one shines in the light, the other one stands in the shadow. When this authority over kings had been exercised for about a century, the papal power reached its utmost height. Quote, and this comes from Hallam's History of the Middle Ages on page 368. The noonday of papal dominion extends from the pontificate of Innocent III inclusive to that of Boniface VIII, or, in other words, throughout the 13th century. Rome inspired during this age all the terror of her ancient name, She was once more the mistress of the world, and kings were her vassals." Unquote. We come to the decline and final fall of the Pope's temporal power in AD 1870. At the end of the 13th or the beginning of the 14th century, the papal political power began from various causes to decline, and continued to do so all through the succeeding centuries until the year 1870, in which year the Pope lost the last vestige of his temporal power when Rome ceased to be governed by the Pope and became the capital of the Kingdom of Italy. Europe was divided into two great camps. Maybe we can go a little bit more into this little time here. It says, at the end of the 13th and the beginning of the 14th century, the papal political power began from various cases to decline. The 14th century, and I would even say the 15th century in this year, because we have this council from Constance, where Jan Hus and Jerome were killed, where 3 popes started the council, and 2 were killed and 1 was set aside, and the 4th one was elected. And then you had the beginning of the 16th century, where there was a council in, I don't know where exactly, but that ran from 1513 through 1517, just a few months before Martin Luther started nailing his 95 Theses on the church door in Wittenberg. And on that Roman Catholic council, there was a bishop or cardinal who said to the Pope that now there is no Protestant left in the world, they are all erased, and the power of the Roman Catholic Church is absolute and universal. And then a few months later, Martin Luther started nailing his 95 Theses on the church door in Wittenberg, just to confirm that God still is in control and that real biblical Christianity was back on a revival, and show the Roman Catholic Church her limits. Yeah? If you guys want to add anything, please, anytime. Otherwise, I just continue.
This is intense. Very intense. Very, very intense.
Yeah, it's history.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the papal noonday. I mean, wow. The world's midnight. Yeah. Yep, that is a big deal. That is a really big deal in history. And then, of course, that's a lot of time to cover, in a short space.
Yeah, it is.
So, yeah. But that's interesting to take this view, this brief overview, and see how that pans out in a short space. And, because we didn't live through these eras.
No. And we
you
spoke about those eras already extensively on earlier parts of the book. It is now just more or less a summarizing of what has been said extensively before in the book, right?
Right. That's right. So, it looks like we're at about an hour. So.
Oh, are we already?
Yeah, I know. I can't believe how fast this went by.
49 minutes, brother. We can still continue.
Oh, 49. Okay, we got 10 minutes left, but
if you want to, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We can also shut it down now if you want to. It's up to you.
I know, Michael, you were concerned about time?
No. For me, it's okay.
Okay, good. Okay, no. I didn't want to cut it short at all. No.
Good.
That was not my intention.
Then let's continue on page 149 of the book. God's great 1,203 years chronometer strikes again, and Europe is divided into two great camps. During this long period of decline, speaking from the 13th actually to the 16th century, that is then, the papacy received two tremendous blows, which contributed more towards its downfall as a temporal power than all other events in its long checkered history. They were the Reformation in the 16th and 17th centuries, which divided Europe into two great camps, Roman Catholic and Protestant, and the Great French Revolution at the close of the 18th century, in the course of which the Pope was carried captive from Rome, and the papacy received a shock from which it has never fully recovered. attention has already been called to the fact that the years 533 AD and 607 AD were critical years or great starting points in the rise of the papal power. Now, 1,203 score years from the issuing of Justinian's decree AD 533 brings us down to the year 1793, the date of the tremendous papal overthrow in the French Revolution, as we spoke earlier about in this broadcast. After the French Revolution, none of the sovereigns of Europe ever gave their kingdom to the Pope, that is, acknowledged his supremacy over the king or government of the country, as they had in preceding centuries, when the Pope had the power to enforce his claim. But we should at this point in the book mention the secret treaty of Vienna, Verona and Curie, in which the Jesuits led the kings of Europe into the quote-unquote secret contract to allow the people to take over, and that is the founding of democracies and republics all over Europe, but only to deceive the people by quote-unquote giving them the power which they actually never have. 3 secret treaties, you could look that up: Vienna, Verona and Curie, taking part between 1815 and 1822. Now, this is dealing with the conniving policy of the Jesuits, and of course the author is not speaking of this at this moment here. Maybe we come to that a little bit later. It is true he afterwards ruled over the city of Rome and the states of the Church, but in 1870 AD, or 1,203 years from the date of the Emperor Phocas' decree in 607, even this last vestige of temporal power was swept away, when Victor Emmanuel entered Rome as the King of Italy and the Pope became a prisoner in the Vatican. And he held the key to that prison from the inside and unlocked it again in 1929. But that's probably for another session of reading. We come to Cardinal Manning's remarkable words in 1860 AD. 10 years before the complete fall of the Pope's temporal power. The complete fall of the Pope's temporal power. That's very important. We have to read it just like this. It is the complete fall of the Pope's temporal power in 1870. It was always, falling parts by parts, bits by bits before, but in 1870 it was completed. In 1860, 10 years before the complete fall of the Pope's temporal power, Cardinal Manning, in a lecture, made the following remarkable statement concerning the duration of the papal temporal power. Quote, "The world has been waiting for at least 1200 years for the fall of the civil sovereignty of Rome." Unquote. From Manning's work, Temporal Power, page 53. The Roman Catholic Cardinal Manning is here acknowledging biblical truth. And then in 1880 AD, after the civil sovereignty of Rome had fallen and the world required to wait no longer, Manning laments, quote, "There is one point in which the present crisis of the Holy See and of the Christian world differs from all that has gone before it. Always in the ages past, when one or more of the European powers were in conflict with the Holy See, one or more of the other powers were friendly and gave it protection. Now, not one stands in its defense." Unquote. And this is from the preface of the same book of Cardinal Manning taken. And why? The words of God were fulfilled. His political power was to continue 1,203 score years, and no longer. The kings referred to in this prophecy were to agree to own submission to the popes of Rome only until the words of God were fulfilled, or until the appointed time, 1,203 score years, had run its course. maybe this is an interesting point to stop this reading with a little debate, because we are almost about an hour, and maybe there is something interesting that we have to say on this in this regard.
Well, there's a footnote here too. It says the reader is strongly recommended to read Guinness's Light for the Last Days, from which the substance of the foregoing remarks on these chronological periods is drawn. And then it shows the different pages to look at. That's interesting.
That's interesting, yeah. But the point that I wanted to make, brother, is that we have reached a point where we come almost to an hour of the broadcast, and
that's right.
And we are reading that the temporal power of the Pope was completely demolished in 1870. Yeah?
Oh, but how about the other power of the Pope? It's not just temporal, is it now?
It's not only temporal, but the point is, how do I put this in words? We are living in 2019. We are living about 100 years after Albert Close wrote this book.
Yeah, that's right.
And today we know that all the kings of the world, almost all the kings of the whole world, not all, but almost all, are paying obedience and fidelity to the Pope.
Yep.
Because of the Jesuits.
Yep.
Not because the Pope has the power spiritually, not because the Pope still has the accepted temporal power as quote-unquote given by Peter to him. Yeah? Matthew chapter 16, Matthew chapter 18, the verses the Pope always refers to where he got his temporal and spiritual power from. But now he is given the power directly from the dragon, directly from the militia of the Jesuit order. This is another era that we are living in now. And this would be very interesting to see, well, what is the era that we are living in? Because if the 1260-year period definitely fell in the beginning of what he said here, the beginning of the 20th century, I think 1923, 1925 was the latest moment that this 1260 years ended. When we consider, well, what we are living 100 years after that, the temporal power and the spiritual power, especially the temporal power of the Pope, is gone. But he is trying to gain it back. What is the time that we are living in right now? That would be very interesting to analyze. But that, of course, would go much beyond the time that we have today.
Yeah. Well, that's really the whole point of doing these readings, sure, Jörg, is to get a better understanding of where we're standing today. That's right.
It is, to me, it seems like, have you ever gone fishing?
Sure. Oh, you bet.
So when you go fishing and you put your line out there and you got a biter, that fish is going to fight when you want to drag him to the land, right?
Well, provided you can hook the fish.
Yeah. So you hooked one.
Mm-hmm.
And you drag him in, you drag the line in. What he's
going
to do?
You have to wear him out, though. You can't just drag him straight in sometimes.
He's battling against you, right?
It's a big one. Yeah.
He's battling against you. He's battling for his life.
Sure.
Well, I think this is what we see with the papacy. His time is done, his prophetic time is done, but he is just on the hook and he is just fighting back. These are the last, in Flemish we use the word Stuiptrekkingen. These are the last, Zuckung in Deutsch, in German. Do you know the translation of that word, Michael? The last.
Not yet.
What's it gonna called? Oh, sometimes
Twitches.
Twitches?
Yeah.
Okay, so the last twitches of the papacy.
Yeah, that's right.
Before the end comes.
Or you could say tugs, tugging.
Yeah.
Twitches. Yeah, that's good.
I don't know. I really have to look it up.
Close enough.
Yeah. Yeah, twitching, spasm, convulsion. The last spasms, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. To fight against what is inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is what we see right now,
Right.
Before the second coming of Christ.
Yeah.
Because that's what gives a complete and utter end to the reign of the papacy, to the reign of the Antichrist. As predicted by Paul in 2 Thessalonians 2, that when that man of sin be revealed, whom the Lord will consume with the breath of his mouth when he comes back.
Mm-hmm.
We are just living in that time until the complete losing of the temporal and spiritual, most of all temporal power of the Pope, until the time of Jesus Christ returns and it is really finished. We now see the last, what was the word again? I lost it here.
Twitches,
the last twitches of the papacy. Yeah. Well, that's what I want to end my contribution to the broadcast today with. I leave the closing remarks to Brother Michael and then Brother Bret.
Yeah, you see that during the reading, thank you very much for that, I just came up with the idea that the devil is in the details. And because the devil is also twitching the word of the Bible, the word of God.
Twisting.
For example, twisting.
Not twitching. That's
okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Twisting the word of God, for example, while the temptation of Christ in the desert by Satan, he's also quoting the Bible. And I was curious to find out where the origin of the phrase "the devil is in the details" is, and it seems so that I got to www.phrases.org.uk. It explains that the source of the proverb is often attributed to the German architect Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. This is almost certainly a misattribution because, and now it gets very interested, the expression derives from an earlier German proverb, "Der liebe Gott steckt im Detail," which translates as "God is in the detail."
Wow.
So I have never heard that God is in the detail because I was raised and indoctrinated with the fact that it's quite usual to use the proverb, "the devil is in the details." And I found it very interesting that all of these things are completely 180 degrees turned around.
Well, you shouldn't be surprised of that, right? Should you?
Yeah, no. it's just a very nice confirmation that we are living in the end times. You see.
You know why they say God is in the details? That is why they have this collider stuff there in Switzerland, CERN, because they are looking for the God part, for the little detail, for the little detail, for the smallest part where God is in, because God is in every part, and they just cannot find him.
Or maybe they will come up with some fake stuff also.
Sure.
Wow.
Yeah. Also, I like to add that just 2 or 3 pages earlier, it was said that the biblical prophecy is always a day for a year. And I can confirm it that in the Gnosticism, especially in astrology, from their origins in Babylon by the Chaldeans, is also using a day for a year in their prophecy. So there's nothing new under the sun because both sides are using the same key for their prophecy.
Yeah, we shouldn't be surprised of that, should we?
No. But it's just actually it's just the same everywhere because you see that. I was not surprised. I just wanted to back that up. That it's just not only special for what's concerning the Bible, but that this knowledge was also been known to the Babylonians. And in my personal opinion, it could be Cush Nimrod who has these understandings because they were descendants of Noah. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, Cush being the grandson and Nimrod being the grandson of Noah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my suggestion. I cannot prove it, see, but just that I do not like the quiet John Doe feeling that the people in the old times were stupid. If you look up that Noah has received a lifespan of 950 years, I think he must be quite smart. And so I think that's not just the lifespan, but if you get direct orders from God, I think that you will be not that dumb. But I think that then, if you fear the Lord, it's the beginning of wisdom, as we all know, in Romans 1:22, I think it was.
And it's in the Psalms, I think.
Proverbs 2.
Proverbs 2, the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. Yeah, that's a Proverbs.
Yeah, it's all over the place.
Then the bad example was Romans 1:22.
Yeah, that is, and professing themselves to be wise, they became fools.
Yeah, okay, that's quite the other way around too. Yeah, but you see that in the times quite some 1,000 years before Christ appeared on this earth, people were so much had so much more time to learn. And then if you think about that, people have married then at the age of 100 years or so, I think then it's also quite obvious why their marriage did last. Because nowadays everything is so speed up.
Yes,
yeah?
it is.
Yeah, it's so sped up so that people do not take their time to study. People do not time to realize the importance of their decisions.
Oh, they want it all in a short time span. Yeah.
Yeah, because they know they have only got a short time span.
Well, that's at least what they think. You know, it's
if
becoming a victim of ideology, I think. You know.
Yeah, but realize, please, brother, that if they follow the path of Satan, then they really have only these lifespan of 70 or 80 years. Mm-hmm. So it's just also the same. It's the same for Satan. It's the same for people who are following Satan. They only
the natural man. Yeah,
they only got a short time.
It's absolutely right.
So live fast, die young, and so live every day if it's were your last. That's the ideology of the people who are following Satan, to have lust instead of love. Mm-hmm. And so I think that was quite an interesting read. And we should be thankful for every detail which is revealed to us. And I'd like to thank all of you for joining or letting me assist you. And I'd like to hand it over to my brother Bret.
Thanks, Michael. We're really happy to have you here, because without you, it wouldn't be the same. And I just find it remarkable that this book covers so many points in such a short space. And we come to the end of the temporal power and the rise of this papal spiritual influence that changed the Word of God and produced numerous amounts of schools for learning against the Bible and against the path of righteousness that was established from the old world. And the new world, in that sense, obviously, it was this new spiritual creation, did not come from our Lord Jesus Christ. It came from the adversary, and he had to exercise that power, because that's his dominion. And who gave him that is the dragon, Satan. So we see the rise of the dragon in the world here in 1870 in that sense. Yeah. And, it was in a spiritual sense. It wasn't foreseen or seen physically. It was done in private. It was done in secret. It was done, you have all these different influences springing up at that time. I think
the Bible
Freemasonry.
Speak of the beast springing, coming out of the pit?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh,
yeah.
That could be that time,
right.
The
right.
The re-establishing of the temporal power which God ordained to be fallen in the latest 1870.
Right.
But the Jesuits, of course, working against that, and this leads to the last twitches of the papacy we spoke about.
There we go.
Is the beast that comes out of the bottomless pit.
Yep, there we go. So very good. Very, very good to get this far with the reading today. And we have some really big ones coming up here. This next portion of the book to the end is going to be very interesting, I think. Very, very interesting. We'll probably go out like a bang then, I would say.
Stay tuned, they say, right?
Yeah, that's right. Right. Get on the edge of your chair next time and listen in with us as we continue to read and discuss the portions of this book that happen to find its way into our being here, into this just incredible, the gift of the Spirit. It lives on, and we hope that you can find it and grow in the Spirit of our Lord Jesus Christ today. And with that, we'll close it down. God bless, and we'll catch up with you next time. Bye-bye.
From whence come wars and fightings among you? Come they not hence even of your lusts that war in your members? Ye lust and have not, ye kill and desire to have and cannot obtain. Ye fight and war, yet ye have not because ye ask not. Ye ask and receive not because ye ask amiss, that ye may consume it upon your lusts. Ye adulterers and adulteresses, know ye not that the friendship of the world is enmity with God? Whosoever therefore will be a friend of the world is the enemy of God. Do ye think that the Scripture saith in vain, the Spirit that dwelleth in us lusteth to envy? But he giveth more grace. Wherefore he saith, God resisteth the proud, but giveth grace unto the humble. Submit yourselves therefore to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw nigh to God, and he will draw nigh to you. Cleanse your hands, ye sinners, and purify your hearts, ye double-minded. Be afflicted, and mourn, and weep. Let your laughter be turned to mourning, and your joy to heaviness. Humble yourselves in the sight of the Lord, and he shall lift you up. Speak not evil one of another, brethren. He that speaketh evil of his brother, and judgeth his brother, speaketh evil of the law, and judgeth the law. But if thou judge the law, thou art not a doer of the law, but a judge. There is one lawgiver who is able to save and to destroy. Who art thou that judgest another? Go to now, ye that say today or tomorrow, we will go into such a city, and continue there a year, and buy and sell and get gain. Whereas ye know not what shall be on the morrow. For what is your life? It is even a vapor, that appeareth for a little time, and then vanisheth away. For that ye ought to say, if the Lord will, we shall live and do this or that. But now ye rejoice in your boastings. All such rejoicing is evil. Therefore to him that knoweth to do good, and doeth it not, to him it is sin. Go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire.